But let's get serious now. Let's put on a serious face now, because I'm going to talk about giving advice to people and selling advice. Now, of course, if selling just brings you out in spots and convulsions, then you want to look away right now. But the fact is, if you want to feed your kids, you've got to sell. Whatever your job is, whether you're a professional mortgage advisor, financial advisor, solicitor, accountant, you've still got to sell. And obviously the advice you give is totally correct, because we're regulated to do that. But you've still got to create desire. You've still got to encourage people to buy what you've got to sell. You've still got to sell yourself, otherwise you're not going to earn any money at all. And you'll be very proud about passing your exams, but you'll have no business, which is no good to anybody. So what I want to talk to you about now is how you can create desire. There you go, create desire. Do you like that one, do you? Create desire for your advice. There you go, your advice. Let's put that up there on the title for you. Because it's not a bad thing, selling. It's not a dirty word. Don't think it is for a moment. I know a lot of mortgage advisors who get all qualified and they think, wow, I'm qualified, man. Here's my certificate. Please, customers, clients, come to me now. It's not going to work like that. That is just not going to happen unless you happen to be part of an IFA practice that's got about 1 million clients that need looking after, and they keep getting requested for business and you get referred. Then of course it's very different. But for the majority of people setting up on their own, they've got to create some desire for their business. Now I've got 6 tips for you here, and the difference really is this one here, which we often call it needs versus wants. Needs and wants. Now talk to any compliance dude or file checker or your sales director or your network manager, somebody that's got like a risk lens on, which most of them do. Then they talk about client needs. Talk to the exam bodies, the regulators. We're talking about client needs. And yes, you've got to establish clients' needs and then advise them on those needs. It's easy. Find out what the needs are by doing fact finding or whatever. You get trained to do it. Elicit those needs, recommend the advice that it has solutions for those needs, and everyone's a winner. If you do it properly, you fill in your suitability letters, you do all your KFIs and all the various disclosures, then you'll do a proper job. But clients won't buy that, and that's the point. Clients don't buy needs. They buy wants. And I want to talk about that a bit more in detail for you, because I really want you to get this, because you are a professional mortgage advisor, but you're also in the business of selling. It's not a dirty word. As I mentioned to you, if you're getting convulsions right now, then move away. Fact is, it's not a dirty word. Okay, when we're allowed out to go to restaurants, Shelley and I hope to go to some restaurants and have a nice meal. Now, when I go to a restaurant, I enjoy sitting down and enjoying the atmosphere and the ambience and the waiters and all that kind of stuff. I love all that. But essentially, I'm hungry. Now, because I'm hungry, I need food. Yeah, obvious really. Now that's my need. I need food. I need something to give me sustenance. I need something to drink. I need something to eat. Now I could have anything I could have oatmeal, if I wanted to, some porridge and some water. That would feed me. There's quite a lot of vitamins and stuff in oatmeal, and the water would certainly stop me from dying. But that's a need. I'm not going to want that though, am I? If I go to a restaurant, I'm going to want something tasty. I'm going to want something enjoyable, something that's like a steak or a vegetarian dish or fish or something. And to drink, I might want a beer or a glass of wine or just some fizzy water. Tap water is good enough for me. So I will want things that are different. And the waiter, of course, will sell me the various meals that they have available to. I always remember the 2012 Olympics. Do you remember the 2012 Olympics? Apparently that kicked us out of recession, the 2012 Olympics. It propelled the UK to boom time until we then had the coronavirus, but we won't talk about that. And the 2012 Olympics, I was reading an article about the lady who ran the catering. And she was saying that she had to feed all these athletes, and the interviewer was really intrigued as to what do athletes eat? How do you feed an athlete? A world-class athlete. And she was saying, well, for all intents and purposes, athletes regard food as fuel. They regard food as fuel because they need their nutrients, their vitamins and energy, etc. to run 100 metres in 9 seconds. And that's absolutely right, isn't it? But she then said in her next breath, so we provided them with fuel, but we also made it interesting to eat as well. It was tasty. So, needs and wants. So that's just getting you comfortable with those two differences. Let's get into this. Let's have a deep dive into these 6 tips to help you. This will help you, and it won't damage your professionalism. It will help you a lot, hopefully, as well. Okay, the first thing then for you is to build trust into what you do, and then sell yourself rather than your finance. So I'm putting there, sell yourself is my first tip for you. Sell yourself, or your company or your firm, whoever you represent. Don't just sell your options that you're advising the client. I've seen many mortgage advisors who are selling the finance options, the wonderful fixed rate mortgage they've arranged for them, the great lending scheme that they've organised for them. They're selling that, and that's great, I get all that. But what you want to do is you want to sell yourself and or your firm early doors. You want to build trust, you want to get rapport, you want to sell yourself. If you sell yourself and they buy into you and what you're about, then they will take whatever recommendation you make for them. And that's absolutely true. And you should spend time early doors doing that, because that's really important to do. So that's a pretty easy one, that, isn't it? Let's have a look at step number 2 for you, which I'm going to put down here for you. Number 2 is signposting. Here's a little sales tip for you called signposting. Probably come across the phrase before. Essentially what it means is that you as an advisor, salesperson, signpost the customer or the client through the buying process that you're going through. Now, you have a sales process. If you don't, you should have one. You can call it an advisor process if you want to. You can call it what you like. But the fact is, it's steps that you take in order to achieve a sale at the end of it. Now, your client, your customer, will want to go along that sales process because you want to lead them along it to a great conclusion. And when you signpost, all you're doing is telling the customer where you are and where you're going. That's all it is. And just by the mere nature of telling the client or leading them along your process is enough for them to often buy it. If they bought into you and they trust you, then they will pretty much do what you want them to do. You've probably been there yourself. I mean, I went to a lawyer last year to buy the house, and the lawyer took me through the process. She told me what she needed to do. I just kind of followed, because we do, don't we? We are herd animals at the end of the day. We do follow, almost like lemming-like sometimes. I'm not saying for a moment that you should lead the customer to something they don't need. Needs versus wants. They should need it, otherwise you shouldn't be selling it. That goes without saying. But the mere fact of leading them along your sales process is often enough to create some urgency in order to get to the next stage. And urgency is a good thing as well. Why do they need to move quickly? Why do they need to make some decisions quickly? There's nothing wrong with a little bit of urgency that you can engender to make the customer take some action as well. Here's the next one for you, number 3. See if you like this one. We call it a qualifying. That's the lovely phrase you've probably heard that we use in sales training. I like to call it why. Has that sneaked in there? Let's put it across here in case it hasn't got into the why. Find out, why is it that the customer wants to talk to you? What's their motivation for rocking up belly button to belly button, eyeball to eyeball with you? Nobody else. What's the reason for it? Why have they approached you? Why is it they want what they want? Why do they want to buy the house? Why do they want a remortgage? Why do they want the finance option? Why? Dig deep into finding out why. And if you can find out why they're doing it, you're going to qualify them. You're going to qualify them to find out what their motivation is, what their hot button is. What is it that excites them about talking to you to organise the finance? You need to find that out, and then of course you can use that later when you're promoting your advice, your needs, if you like. Actually, let's make that quite clear what we're talking about here. Needs is the advice side, isn't it? Let's just squeeze that in there. So wants are the desire. That's what people desire. They desire advice. It's the key thing. Right? Makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, different colour pen then. Let's give you tip number 4. This is probably my favourite one, actually. See what you think about this one. The customer or the client, let's call them clients, can't we? The client's buying process. The client's buying process. What I mean by this is what you've got to do here is you've got to find out how the customer buys things. Now, everybody has a process of buying things. It doesn't matter what you're buying, you have a process to follow. Everybody's slightly different, but broadly speaking, people have steps in which they take to buy things. Me, I like to do a lot of research. I like to get good at the topic. I then look at customer reactions, reviews. I like to look at the person, the shop, the website, whatever it is. I like to feel good about it personally, to have trust, and then I go ahead and buy it. I don't faff around too much. Everybody has a different buying process. You've got to find out where the customer is in their buying process. Just because you're talking to them, don't think for a moment they're not talking to anybody else. Okay, they might just be with you. It might be a client you've dealt with for years in the buy-to-let market, for example. They've always come back to you. But it could well be that you're on the phone, somebody's called you via a website, and you're talking to them about finance options, a second charge option, or whatever it is. Now, they will be talking to other people. They will be talking to other people. How committed are they to talk to you to take the next step? Are they talking to somebody else? Are they willing to go online and do some more research? So ask them the question. When you're in the market for this last time, what steps did you take? Don't mind me asking. I'm really curious to know. When you last obtained a loan or a mortgage, how did you go about doing it? I hope you don't mind me asking that. I'm just really curious. If you ask it in a sugar-coated way, people will tell you. They'll tell you their buying steps. They'll tell you their buying process, and all you do is you latch onto that. But more importantly, you want to see where they are in their buying process. Most people, they reckon, there's all sorts of research, shows that people are 50 to 60% through their buying process before they actually approach you, if of course they've come to you directly. And that's quite scary because they would have done tons before you see. They would have talked to other people, they'd have a few other options, irons in the fire. So ask them directly. Again, don't mind me asking, who else have you spoken to about this? Who else are you in current communication with about this? Who else do you intend to talk to about this? How do you intend to verify this? Is there a significant other that you like to talk to about these things? Find out early. Otherwise, it will cause you a problem later. It will, because when you come to present your advice to create the desire for it, they'll say no. You'll say, well, why not? It's perfect advice. Because the fact is they've already made the decision to talk to somebody else, or they have talked to somebody else. So find that out and then deal with it. Find how you can become the exclusive purveyor of the advice that you give. So buying process is really important. Okay, here's another one, and this is really salesy. So, it's up to you how you handle this one. This one is, I call it preempting objections. Do you like that? Preempting objections. Now, we don't use the phrase objections anymore, but clients do have concerns about what you're telling them and what you're selling to them. People will have problems with it. People will have a decision factor they need to put into place. Their buying process might be that they never make a quick decision. They always go away and think about it for days, And people will have concerns over what it is that you're selling to them or you're advising to them. Now, the point here is that you mustn't leave it to the end. When you present your advice and they say no, that's a concern, isn't it? You need to do something about getting rid of those concerns early. Now, I talk about preempting. I talk about hitting it off at the pass before they get there. A bit like a little cowboy, isn't it? Running on his horse, trying to cut the bad guys off at the pass, But there are only 4 client concerns. And if you know those 4, you can build into your patter how to deal with them early doors. So let me give you an example of the first client concern, number 1, is they don't trust you. They don't tell you that, but they don't trust you. Number 2 is whatever it is you're advising, they don't think is going to work. Again, they're not going to tell you that, but that's what they think. Number 3, they don't want to spend the money on it. And number 4, they don't want to do it right now. Time. Those 4 objections are what every objection comes under one of those 4. So you have to build into your pattern to do that. So for example, it could be they don't want to pay for it. Now you may well sell a product that maybe has some expensive parts to it. Now I sell my services, I have a fee. I charge a fee for my corporate work, and it's a certain fee. Is it high? Is it low? I don't know really, but it's a fee. But I will always make sure the client has budget to pay for that fee early doors. I'm not going to go into all my advice and recommend, and then they ain't got any money to pay for it. No, I want to make sure the fee is talked about early, because it's not low. It's fairly reasonably high, I think, but it needs to be talked about early. You might have a broker fee, say £1,000. that you charge. And, that might, because your boss tells you to do that, your company tells you that you have to charge it. And you might think, well, actually, that's quite a lot of money. A lot of other people aren't charging broker fees. Gosh, I better sort of slip that in later. But you can't, you have to disclose it. But you need to broach it early. Why do you charge £1,000? What's the benefit of you charging £1,000 to the customer to arrange a mortgage? If they go and get it cheaper elsewhere. What value do you bring? What extra benefits do you bring to the table to justify £1,000? I was working with some clients recently about second charge lending, bridging finance. They charge fees. But you see, their fees include the valuation fee, the legal fees, and they cost a few quid. If it's a big property, the valuation costs are £500-600, and the legal fees can be up to £1,000 just to sort of draw up a second charge on a mortgage or to remortgage a property that's expensive. Now the fee includes that, so make sure the customer knows how expensive those fees are, how much the valuations are, etc. If the house is worth £900,000, we're talking about a few quid here. It's not like a 50 quid valuation fee. So what I'm saying there is that deal with those concerns early. Do something in your sales pitch, sales patter to handle those objections early. And even professional mortgage advisors should do the same thing. Again, just because you've got lots of exams, your charter status, etc., doesn't mean you don't have to do any selling. I'm fully qualified up to a massive level, but I still sell my services and quite happy to do so. So that's tip number 5. Let me give you tip number 6 then, which is a nice one actually, and I'm going to put this in red because I can. Tip number 6 for you is gain commitment. Go commitment. Get some commitment in. Is my tip for you. Now, if I had £1 or $1, depending on which part of the pond you're coming from, I don't think many people in the US listen to the mortgage podcast or the mortgage live stream because we tend to talk about UK-based stuff here, but maybe we've got some friends over there on the other side of the pond who talk about dollars. Now, if I had $1 or £1 for every mortgage advisor that have said to me that they are giving advice when they're actually just giving free information, I would be a very rich man. So I'm talking about here free information. There's a lot of mortgage advisors, financial advisors who give a lot of free information. Now they're giving free information out because they can, but the customer, the client doesn't end up buying and they're just getting free information. Now again, if I had £1 for every time I've seen that, I'd be a very rich person. Now why do we give free information? Well, we don't really want to, but we're giving information, we're giving advice, if you like, information. And the customer's not buying it. So my interpretation of that is it's free, and that's wrong. You've got to put money on the table. You've got to feed your kids, haven't you? You've got to earn some bucks. You've got to keep the coins rolling in. So of course you're talking here about free information. How do you get around that? Well, you get commitment from the customer before you give them the free information. It's that simple, really. 2 types of commitment really you can talk about here. There's testing the water. I call them test closes, but the phrase close is a bit 90s, isn't it? So ask the customer how they're getting on. How does that sound so far? What does this come over to you at this point? How are you thinking? What are you thinking at this stage? How is that feeling for you? How is that sounding for you? Is this interesting so far? So throughout your sales process, make sure you ask those questions. Get them nodding, get the green light on the traffic lights. So test closing is something you should do regularly. Use yes tags. This is quite interesting, isn't it? We're going to do a fact find now for about half an hour to find out what needs you have. That would be useful, wouldn't it? So use yes tags to get people to nod. Test closes are really useful. And if you get really brave and you're about to give a load of free information, try and get some commitment to that free information turning into a sale. Now, I call this the vicar close. You ask me about that later, but it's called pre-close sometimes as well. So ask the question like this. Okay, what we're going to do now is spend a good hour looking at your needs, and I'll then turn that into some advice so I can present the advice which will let you buy the house and keep the property for whatever happens to you. If that meets your needs and the advice I give you, really resonates with you, are you in a position to go ahead with me right now? It's like that bit at the end. It's a bit salesy. So, if the advice I give you fits you, you like it, it fits your budget, you can afford it, are you going to go ahead with it? It's what you're saying. You're doing it in a nice way. Obviously, you're not asking them to go ahead yet because you haven't given them the advice. Do you see what I mean? You're doing it pre the advice. But that will stop you giving free information. If you think you're going to have to give free information, get commitment first. Okay, we're going to talk about this for half an hour. I'm going to give you this advice. I'm going to show you what mortgage you can obtain at what rate. But if it fits you, if it suits you, if you like it, would you go ahead with it now? Would you buy it now? They may come back and say, well, I'm not quite sure about that, but then you want to deal with that before you start giving the free advice. You see, that's what it comes down to. So, it's up to you how you handle that. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that you should not use any sales skills, because you might, your position in your company might be enough, or you've got your lovely offices, your great brand, and you're giving advice and people just buy it from you without even thinking about it. I get it, it's totally fine. But a lot of people do need to do some selling. And these ideas will just create desire for your advice. That's all I'm looking to do here. I'm looking for you to give advice, elicit needs, of course, and that's your suitability letters and everything, but turn them into wants. Turn them into something they want, they desire, they want to have. So when I go to the restaurant, I want that piece of fish that's being slowly char grilled under coals with a little lemon sauce next to it as well, with some fries or some new potatoes that have just come out of the field with a little bit of lemon and mint on the top as well. I want that to enjoy, and I really want that now. What I don't want is a bowl of oatmeal that's just going to stop me from dying. Do you see what I mean? Slightly different. Talked about that a lot. If you don't like it, fine, I get it. But it's really important. You've got to do this. Remember, you're passing your CMAPs and your exams in order to get qualified, but you've got to set up a business and be successful at being a mortgage advisor. And this sort of stuff will make you successful. It'll create business for you. You'll be able to build your business, invest in your business, get enjoyment from your business. You'll be able to feed your kids and have a holiday as well along the way, and have a really good career. Remember, everybody has to sell, and these subtle ways allow you to do that.